the hand is flat with the palm towards the wind, and then to reduce drag, it is held sideways.
And you can feel the wind push against it. But as soon as you turn it sideways, it'll move through the air a lot easier and you won't feel as much push. So with our paper airplane, this first one that we're going to make, we're going to try to make it with as little drag as possible. We want this thing to be as fast as we can possibly make it. And so one way to do that is to make it really cut through the air, make it aerodynamic. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by taking our paper airplane that we folded hot dog style, and we're actually going to start by bringing in the edges to make a nice pointed nose. Now this pointed nose, as you can tell already, has a nice point that'll cut through the air. But we're going to go even further. You see how this angle here is a little wide. If we open it back up and then make one more fold right down following that middle line, and make sure our creases are nice and tight, what we can do is make an even more narrow or more acute angle. And what this will do is actually cut through the air much more easily. All right, so that is the first few steps there, and we're going to move on to our next fundamental force. All right, our next fundamental force, we've already talked about thrust and we've already talked about drag. Our third fundamental force is going to be lift. Lift is the thing that will actually pick up our airplane, to have it lift off the ground. And on an airplane, as you may have guessed, it's the wings that will actually create that lift. So with our paper airplane here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to fold down the wings just like this. We're going to make this kind of basic paper airplane. And we're going to make sure that, again, we crease those really nice and tightly. And as you can tell, it's got that nice pointed shape from our last step. And our wings are a little different. So our wings are actually very narrow. And when you have narrow wings, what that means is it will cut through the air, reducing that force of drag, but it also doesn't create as much lift. So typically what you want is if you have narrow wings, it'll go faster because it has less drag. If you have wide wings, it'll create more lift. So this paper airplane that we just made will actually have less lift than something with bigger wings, but it should move pretty quickly through the air. All right, now the last fundamental force that we're going to talk about is gravity. Now gravity actually works against lift, so if you've been noticing a little bit of a theme, all of our fundamental forces actually work with and against each other. So thrust is countered by drag, and lift is countered by gravity. And it's really easy to demonstrate gravity. If you take your paper airplane and you drop it, it falls down to the earth. And the same thing happens with real airplanes. Without any lift, they'd fall to the ground. Now, something you may have noticed is that most airplanes are made out of really light materials. With our paper airplanes, it's paper, but if you've ever been on a big commercial jet or something like that, it's usually really lightweight metals like aluminum. And in World War II, they may have had some training airplanes made out of fabric even. And so this light weight means that we don't need as much thrust. We don't have to throw it as hard in order to get it to go through the air and lift off the ground. If you can imagine my paper airplane here, if this was made out of metal, it would be really hard to throw because it would be so much heavier. And what we're going to do now is we are actually going to show another paper airplane that's a little bit different and talk about some of those differences between this paper airplane and our next one. All right, folks, so what you're going to do for your next paper airplane is you're going to take your piece of paper and you're going to fold it hamburger style. So you're going to take it so that it's a little bit wider to start with. And what we're going to do is we're going to start by opening it up, and we're still going to make it a little pointed here. We're still going to give it some of that aerodynamic ability to fight against the force of drag.
The paper is folded so that the top left and top right corners are brought to the center line, creating a nose of the paper airplane.
So once you have the two ends folded to the middle, I want you to take the nose, the tip, and actually fold it back. And then we're going to fold it right back in half. So already we can tell that it's different than our first airplane because it doesn't have this pointed nose. So instead of being able to cut through the air aerodynamically, it's going to push against the air, just like when your hand was out of the window. Then what we're going to do is we're not going to fold it again to make it even more aerodynamic. We're going to keep these wings as big as possible in order to have a larger force of lift. So we're going to fold it right down like this.
The wings are folded down with only about ½ an inch from the bottom remaining.
And make sure to keep those creases nice and tight. And what this will do is create a paper airplane with huge wings. See how much more wing we have on this paper airplane than this one. So when you throw this one outside, what you're going to see is that it'll fly a little bit longer with less force. But it won't fly as fast. Remember that the forces acting on this are going to be our thrust from throwing it, the drag, so it doesn't have the pointed nose and it's got more wings showing to the wind or to the air. Lift, now because it's got big wings, it's going to lift a little bit higher, and gravity. And so these are going to be the same weight, the same amount of gravity is going to be affecting both of our paper airplanes, but we changed all three of those other fundamental forces of flight. So if you get a chance, go ahead and throw these outside, take a look at what the differences are, and then go ahead and post down below with our comments on different types of paper airplanes you've created. Show us maybe some of those really cool designs that really show those 4 fundamentals of flight. Once again, I've been Ranger Chad from the Tuskegee Airmen National Historic Site, really coming from my home office here, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video.